Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to this panel on investing in people, restoring Ukraine's human capital. I'm Alan Russo. I am a team and executive coach working independently. But before I started doing that, I worked in this institution at EBRD for 21 years, and I'm very, very pleased to be back at Olena's invitation. So lovely to see all of you this afternoon. This is, of course, an incredibly important topic, and I'm very pleased to see so many people in the room. The issue we're going to speak about for the next 60 minutes or so is of critical importance for the present and for the future of Ukraine. The country's labor market is facing a complex set of unprecedented challenges brought on predominantly, but I should say not exclusively, by Russia's invasion of Ukraine's territory and the ongoing war. Ukraine is contending with a long-term demographic crisis and population decline that preceded the invasion. It's contending with massive outward migration of women and children especially, internal displacement, high unemployment, critical skills shortages, and large-scale mobilization of working-age men for its defense efforts. So Ukraine desperately needs to expand its workforce, to support the domestic economy today, and even more so, to support its reconstruction efforts in the future when hostilities come to an end. So we have a fantastic panel of people to help us get beneath the surface of this challenge. Experts, practitioners, employers who will plumb the depths of this challenge, this human capital crisis, if I can call it that Ukraine is facing, and offer up, hopefully, some constructive suggestions on what can be done to address it. I want to hear not only from our panel, of course, today, but also from you. So I'm going to be leaving some time at the end for you to pose your questions, and hopefully we'll keep them brief. Those in the room can, of course, just flag me down, wave your hand, and I can call on you. Anybody who is joining us online, please use Slido to pose your questions, and then I'll be able to see them on this handy little screen that I've been given. So let me then introduce you to our panel, and I'm going to ask them very briefly before we kick off the discussion to also just say one sentence about their appearance, because we're trying to make this an inclusive event for people who are visually impaired. So I'll start with myself. You can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I'm rather tall. I'm wearing a gray suit and a white shirt and a blue tie, and I have white hair and glasses. There we go. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel and then ask them to do the same. I have to my left Olga Rudneva. She is the CEO of Superhumans War Trauma Center, which is a clinic for psychological support, prosthetics, reconstructive surgery, and rehabilitation for people injured during the war. Astoundingly, the center was built in 4.5 months in Lviv during the full-scale invasion and provided services already to more than 1,000 patients since its inception. So very, very pleased to have Olga with us today. I should also say that Olga is a columnist and well-known women's rights activist. For 6 years in a row, Olga tops the list of the most successful women in Ukraine. And in 2024, she was listed amongst the top 100 women of the year by the BBC. Lovely to have you, Olga. Next to Olga is Gleb Vishlinsky. He's executive director of the Center for Economic Strategy. He manages that institution since its establishment in May 2015, and within 10 years, the Center for Economic Strategy has grown from 1 to 20 employees to become one of the leading think tanks in Ukraine. To his left is Mr. Vyacheslav Klimov. He is co-founder of Novopost, Ukraine's leading private postal and courier company, the president also of the Union of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs. So we'll have lots to say about the issues that Ukrainian entrepreneurs are facing with the labor shortages that I mentioned. The latest project that Vyacheslav and his company are working on, signed in 2024 with the EBRD, with an EBRD loan, was about the network expansion and upgrade, but also, importantly, to introduce safety and social development components with the support of the EBRD, such as construction of over 600 bomb shelters at the company's premises in Ukraine, and technical support to facilitate veterans reintegration and expansion of training opportunities for women. So wonderful to hear more about that. Then we have Barbara Rambuzek. Barbara is the Director of the Gender and Economic Inclusion program at the EBRD. She is really sort of the leader in this field, both here and I would say amongst the MDBs generally. She's established the bank's approach to integrating economic inclusion into its mandate to address inequality through private sector investment and policy engagement. And we're very, very pleased also to have with us Mr. Mauro Longobardo. He is the Chief Executive Officer at ArcelorMittal Kryvyi Rih. He has extensive work experience in leadership roles in the steel industry. He has held the position also of Vice President and Board Member at the European Business Association. So I'm going to ask each of you then, before I then kick off the questions, to just say one sentence about your appearance for the visually impaired. Olga.
I should say that I'm Ukrainian, first of all, and I think it's the most important thing about myself. And I'm Ukrainian by decision more than by blood. And I'm wearing Ukrainian shirt today. That's Vishvanka. And it's because it's Vishvanka Day in Ukraine today, and it's a lot of people in the audience who are wearing Vishvanka. So to stress my Ukrainian origins and to stress my Ukrainian part of me. So yeah, I think this is the most important part. Wearing Vishvanka for in London today.
Lovely, thank you. Clip.
Thank you. I am Ukrainian in a suit, and I am Ukrainian bespectacled man in white shirt and jacket and with a tie, so that it could look like as it is peace in Ukraine. Unfortunately, there is no peace yet.
Hello, I'm Ukrainian too. And I represent here modern, sophisticated Ukrainian business. Yeah, and for me was great pleasure and privilege find the boxes of Nova Post here near Ukrainian art exhibition, and it was the best sign of Ukrainian business present here. Thank you.
Hello, so I'm Barbara Rambusek. I'm very much EBRD, I think. In terms of also my attire, I wear a light jacket and a dark or a black and white dress today, which is very much corporate, I guess. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mauro. I'm Italian, but with 9 years already spent in my life in Ukraine, so that makes 20% and going further to reach you guys here on my right. I'm dressing a gray suit, and I put the tie like with orange dots to match with the speaker tag.
Okay, so now for those of you in the audience in the back, you now know what we look like if you can't see us. And for those who are visually impaired, they're part of this session. Let me start, because I already sort of described a few of the major challenges in a sort of layperson's way, as I understand it, just reading the press. Khlib and his center obviously have a much more detailed and deeper understanding of this challenge and how it's evolved over time. So I want to put the first question to you sort of as a scene setter, Khlib, to tell us what you can about the sort of the big picture of Ukraine's human capital situation. What are some of the things, the obstacles that are getting in the way of Ukraine's long-term labor market recovery?
Thank you, Alan. I hope colleagues will show a slide. I kindly asked colleagues of EBRD to show, as there are a lot of figures. Like if you speak about people, there are a lot of figures, and why we are so focused on it. And I have to say thank you to Olena and her team to taking the idea of like having this event today. because as our analysis shows, and not only our analysis of international financial institutions, OECD, is that human capital will be the biggest impediment to the post-war recovery in Ukraine. Everybody speaks about physical damages. However, with money, physical damages could be restored. Human lives and people, even if they are fit and healthy, could not move as easily and as fast as money and things, because they are people. And we have long-term challenges, as Alan mentioned in his introductory speech, in Ukrainian demographic situation. We have natural decline population. You see here on the slides that currently we have just 26 million population aged 15 plus, and total population is just 31 million now. And we still compare it to 52 million maximums that Ukraine reached in early 90s. And you understand that yes, like it is a problem of Russian aggression, the first wave in 2014, and then full-scale invasion in 2022, that brought the situation with a number of people on government-controlled territories to such decline. However, it is also natural decline in population due to low birth rates, due to hard economic transition. An estimate is that even if war stops by the next year, in 2032 there will be just 30 million of people residing in Ukraine, and it is just not enough to defend the territory against aggressive neighbor and to maintain nationwide infrastructures that, of such a large country. And that's why like numbers is a problem, because some of you can say, so what's the problem? Like, let's increase GDP per capita and everybody will be happy. It is not as easy. The second long-term problem is aging. You could see the proportion on this slide when there are just 13 million economically active and 10 million economically inactive, including largest share of pensioners. It is because of low birth rate since 1990s. Currently, birth rate in Ukraine is the lowest in Europe, close to 1 per woman. It is the lowest in on our continent, and we have like, why such a low birth rate? In fact, like, it is very important if, for example, you compare the situation of Ukraine with other countries that are in war now, like Gaza, like it was in Syria. Demographic structure is completely different. Like, families are small, number of children is low. It is really very different, like, if you devise policies for war-effective countries. One of the reasons why birth rates is low is that there are systematic issues in childcare and care for the elderly that, in fact, prevent economic participation of women. Like the latest OECD report shows that we have much lower level of economic participation compared to a peer group of countries in Europe, but also certainly to OECD countries. And this is not because of cultural differences. Those of you who know times of USSR, like USSR was bad in most of dimensions, but in terms of gender equality, it was not the worst. And labor immigration, it is the issue that appeared not just after the full-scale invasion. Before it, our estimate was that on any given day we had over 2.5 million of Ukrainians working abroad. mostly in Poland. Like Poland generally is and was very aggressive in attraction human capital from Ukraine by opening its labor market, in fact, to Ukrainians even before the full-scale war. And like why it was so, like general economic issues, result of was a result of lack of foreign direct investment compared to neighbors, and low productivity, and as a result low wages. Only like why it has not been addressed earlier in
Clip, can I just ask you to pause there, because I think we're going to have time to come back for a second round, and I think we've given the audience quite a lot already to process.
Yeah,
and I want
just one point, like to put an end on this on this topic of long-term issues, why policies were so slow in addressing it. You can see this very big decline from 52 to 31 in just 30 years. And society policies generally is still not adapted to understanding that there is a lack of population, there is a lack of labor force, there is nobody to build our economy on, like from what we saw in 90s, where there was still like big structural transition on employment and very different situation.
Thanks for that, Clip. And you have really set already, I think, the scene and given us an understanding of really how the scale of the challenge that Ukraine faces and has faced for some time, as you said. We have three speakers now I want to sort of turn to who are kind of working specifically on some of that, and then I'm going to come to Olga at the end to talk about the important work that Superhumans is doing. But Barbara, let me start with you. You know a lot of what Khalib has probably just described to the audience, and I know EBRD is doing what it can to try to address this particular challenge. So specifically within the area of work that you're responsible for, what sorts of things is EBRD doing to try to address in whatever way it can the human capital challenge, the labor shortages, and bringing more people into the workforce through the entrepreneurs it works with, but also the policy engagement that it does with the government?
Thank you very much, Alan. And indeed, the story in a way that you are setting out is a story that we hear time and again from our clients, pretty much across every single sector. And we have actually two of them here today, and I'm sure they will tell us more about their experience and how that feels in terms of operating a business. But what we see is that human capital challenge is a huge challenge for businesses just to keep operating. And so the focus of our clients is very much on sort of bringing everyone in the country back into the labor force, mobilizing those people who can be mobilized, whether that is women, whether that is veterans that are returning from the front, whether that is IDPs, or potentially even people now coming back, or actually attracting foreign labor into the country. And we are working already with clients across all these areas. So what do? You know, we have clients who come to us in relation to a number of different challenges. They need people to be able to operate whatever operations they have, whether that is large infrastructure, energy infrastructure, whether that is railways, or whether that is simply operations in other sectors. So we look at the extent to which their workforce needs to be redeployed, whether there needs to be retraining and upskilling of people in order to enable them to go into the kind of jobs, into the kind of areas that are understaffed at the moment. So there's a lot of investment in skills. But then there's increasingly also, and this is something that actually Marco, who's sitting there, who was with me in Kyiv last week, this is something that we heard from our clients now very strongly. There's a focus on the psychosocial element. There's a focus on mental health. There's a focus on supporting companies from top management to line managers to co-workers to veterans, for example, or IDPs, but also their families, to support them to cope with this ongoing stress and this ongoing sort of barrage of being under attack. And for example, with Ukrenergo, we have a large program. We're working with their 9,000 staff to provide psychosocial support to all of them, but particularly those workers that are actually working on energy infrastructure, which we know is under attack particularly, or staff who are working near the front lines. So these people need support, because that kind of stress is not something that you just put aside very easily. So this focus on psychosocial support, the focus on skills and training, and then also very importantly, we work with our financial institution partners, also in relation to, for example, access to finance. We have large programs now supporting veterans to three things: to go back into jobs in the financial institution sector, to also access finance through our partner financial institutions in order to keep their businesses running or set up new businesses. But then also, and I think that's actually quite innovative for our partner financial institutions, to support their clients, the SME clients, for them to reintegrate veterans into their workforces. Because we know SMEs tend to have smaller HR capacities, if at all, and they need more support. So we provide all this support across all these different sides. There's a lot more that we do in the policy side. I can maybe come back to that in the second round if you want, or I can talk about it now as well.
Let's save it. And
Yeah.
well, the other thing to save, to get your thoughts on how donors are stepping up to support this kind of work, and maybe we can come back to that as well, because the things you've described, they sound very much like bolt-ons to work that the bank is doing as a bank, as a provider of finance. And you've got obviously a lot of entrepreneurs who are willing to receive this support. So what is that partnership like, and are donors stepping up to the plate to be able to support this kind of effort that EBRD and others are making?
So I wouldn't call it a bolt-on. I would call it as an integral part of how we structure our engagement with our client, and that goes beyond the financial relationship, but into a sort of impact relationship, because we provide the support, the capacity building, sometimes the CapEx also, in order to build training centers or to make adaptations that are needed in order to reintegrate veterans or people with disability into the workforce. And donors clearly are very key. We have strong partnerships with the European Union in this context, but also many others. We have our Action for Equality and Gender Fund, for example, that is a key vehicle to allow us to provide this technical assistance and this capacity building. Generally, what we find is that the contributions that we make from our side through our donors also tend to be relatively small compared to the investment volume that we actually have. And we build the capacity on the part of clients to then continue with those operations and to continue with those training programs or psychosocial programs, etc. So it's very much a capacity building component.
Great. Well, I think that's, you've articulated, I think, one of the core strengths that EBRD brings as a partner to businesses in all the countries where it operates. Let me turn to Vyacheslav now. Clearly, Ukraine's employers in the private sector are going to be key drivers for addressing the problems of job creation and building new livelihoods for people in Ukraine. So what business approaches are you taking? I mentioned one in the project that we did that you've done with EBRD, that have proven effective at sort of generating workforce recovery. How have you found it in the various companies that sit underneath Nova Post and Nova Group?
Of course, as you mentioned before, the main goal for each Ukrainian business is to keep our operations even under attack. Especially if Russians marked, for example, Nova Post as a legal target for their rockets. So we have to find solutions for our people. Keep working even in such awful conditions. So. For us, maybe the key point was a security of our employees, first of all, during our operations. That's why, thanks to EBRD as a finance source, we installed and built 1,000 shelters on our facilities, even so-called life capsules inside our sorting centers. You could imagine it's a small concrete capsules inside our hubs, but now our people could reach this small shelter in 30 seconds. But it's a huge investment, of course. We need huge funds to provide security of our people. So the second approach for us is to let's say redesign our working environment, our working places, according to shortage of electricity, for example, during blackouts, with absence of internet. So it's very complicated task to keep our operations as a technological and digitalized company without internet or without electricity supply. So that's why we had to make all our facilities completely automated without electricity supply. We equipped it with Starlink's units, with gas generators, and so on. Yeah, and of course it's a big task too. We have become a pillar of support for our employees in any situations, physically, mentally. So we created special psychological lines of psychological support for our people. Another challenge for us, it's support of our mobilized employees. I have awful number, but about 4,000 of my colleagues are mobilized to Ukrainian army, and we think that supply of special equipment to these people, it's our responsibility too. And of course, back to security, the great challenge or our answer to this situation is providing of security of our people near frontline. We created so-called mobile groups of our employees, and we had to equip them even helmets and bulletproof vests. So it's maybe it could sound strange here in London, but it's a reality of Ukrainian business life.
Yeah. Well, what comes across really powerfully from what you've said, Vyacheslav, is the care that you and your team invest in people, in the people that already work for you, and in their safety and security, which I can imagine is an everyday preoccupation. So wonderful to hear that. And we'll come back to talk more maybe about what, as you look ahead, what do you see as some of the challenges your company is going to face to attract skilled people into the company. But I'm going to come back to you in a moment. First, I'm going to turn to Mauro. Mauro, and I'll come back, Vyacheslav. But Mauro, maybe you can tell us a bit about some of the strategies that ArcelorMittal is taking in Kryvyi Rih to address the labor shortages I'm sure you're experiencing, and what sort of changes do you think need to happen to make this a more tractable challenge today, but also in the future?
Yeah, thank you. So I will say that listening to the colleagues, we are almost all aligned with the situation. I would like to give you some numbers about our experience. Our facility is the biggest single facility in metal and mining that is in Ukraine and is located in Kryvyi Rih, so pretty close to the front lines. And I can tell you that since the end of 2021, actually we had an outflow of around 9,000 of our people. So 30% of it. So we closed 2021 around 30,000, so 27,000 employees. And 9,000 of them actually left. So we have 3,000 in the army that are serving, but actually 6,000 left on their own. So either they moved to other places in Ukraine, they decided to leave this area that is a little bit closer to the front line. And we were able in the same period only to hire back 3,000 people. But you can imagine that these 9,000, they were very experienced people. Our business is making new experience after 20 years, probably. There are very specific professions. And these 9,000 people, people that found the way to move and to get a job somewhere else, were also some specific professions. So it was not homogeneous. We didn't lose homogeneously the people in different functions. We lost specific professions that were interested either from the army side, or they were able, with their skills, to find easily a job somewhere else. That could be Poland or other places in Europe. So it's not only about the number itself, it's about the skills, the professionalism of the people. And you can imagine that in our business, somehow we have managing with high risks, so with equipments that are actually very dangerous to operate. And the lack of professionalism increase even more the risk that we are having while we operate in this environment. So somehow we are trying to look how we will be able to get back. Because from financial point of view, I can tell you that during this period, we were paying people even to stay at home. So even if the plant was not working full and people were at home, we decided to invest in them, trying to keep them at the place, because we knew that if they would leave, probably we will not be able to bring them back. So it's not a matter of money itself. It cost us a lot, especially in a moment in which in our business, in our type of products, we have huge, I would say, financial burden because of the war. But we decided to do. But nevertheless, the number of people that left is pretty big. Now, what we are doing to avoid and to bring more people that will not leave, we are focusing on categories. First of all, women. Even before the war, we had around 27%, 28% of women in the plant. So we are talking about 9,000 women. So it's a big amount to be in the metallurgical industry. If you compare with European countries, it's a huge difference. But in Ukraine, this is normal. We have strong women in Ukraine, so they like to work also in this business. And we started focusing on them specifically for the job that were left empty. And we have specific plans. So last year we were able to hire 500 of them, and we are actually making an accelerated training programs in order for them to be quicker in the position than it was actually before the war. And another one, that is the future one, but not so much, is about students. So we are working a lot with the remaining students. That would be probably another discussion we might have in the second round. But somehow we have around 700 students that we help finance support at the university in Kryvyi Rih. And we try to attract them in order to replace, as for the women, in the quickest time as possible, the people that actually that left the company. But still, I try to find for 2 years already around 1,000 professionals in some specific profession, like electricians or locomotive driver. And it was impossible. It's not a matter of money. It's just they are not available.
I think that puts a very fine point on the challenge that Ukrainian companies are facing today. I think I saw a statistic somewhere around sort of the unemployment rate being quite high, more than 12%, but then you have labor shortages. So what does it tell you? It tells you that you can't find the right people to do the jobs that need to get done, and that is something we can maybe look to hear more about in the second round. I want to turn now to Olga. This panel is, many of you will know this, organized under the Civil Society Engagement Program. And Olga, you're the only representative of civil society. I suppose CLIB maybe also counts in that regard as well. But I know that civil society plays an important role in general in Ukraine, particularly over the last several years, and in combating the challenges that Ukraine is facing during the war since 2022. So maybe you can tell us a bit about what your organization, Superhumans, is doing to bridge the workforce gaps in Ukraine, and generally what you think the role of civil society can be in stimulating people back into work.
Before I go into what Superhuman does in Ukraine, I was sitting here and listening to what Vyacheslav said and what Mauro said. Can you just imagine that it's 2025, we are sitting in London, and we are discussing actually, a company being a target. Like every Ukrainian right now is a target of Russians. And the number of problems, employee is solving in Ukraine today. By mentioning all the problems that Vyacheslav and Mauro mentioned, we still have the same problems of educating people, hiring people, paying, salaries, maternity leaves, and the rest of the stuff. So nothing went away. But plus to that, capsules, 30 seconds to run, to bomb shelter, to keep our people alive, to hire people from the market. We mobilized, like so many people. So it's like in a computer game, okay? You manage one level and then another level, another level, another level, but all the difficulties are stay there. So it's very difficult to be a big business in Ukraine now, but in spite of all of that, businesses in Ukraine are developing, and Nova Post is a great example of that. So that's about strength of Ukraine. And what is Superhumans is dealing with is individual strength. So we are basically returning back lost abilities to those people who lost limbs, their faces, being on the front lines. So we are dealing with those people who are mobilized, went to the front lines, or went to the front lines voluntarily, and lost their limbs, lost their faces, lost hearing. So they end up in Superhumans, and we are bringing back their lost abilities. We are a medical entity. We are a war trauma center. We are accumulating war experience of how to provide medical aid in such difficult cases, because the world doesn't know. We didn't have such kind of war. And we never planned to think what is next. We thought that our goal is to give the best prosthetics, our goal is to give the best services, and do the dischargement party and say, you're a superhuman, good luck. The ArcelorMittal is waiting for you, Nova Post is waiting for you. But it doesn't work like that. It turned out that we don't need arms or legs if we don't have place to go, or we don't need arms if we don't have things to pick up. So if you don't have the reason to leave your apartment, you don't need your luxurious prosthetics. So we started thinking, what is next? Why do people going to be wearing our prostheses? And that's how we actually started the process of reintegrating our patients into civilian life, because we need to give them the goal, and we need to understand what they're going to be doing when they are discharged. They had military experience of 10 years. Everyone is talking about, Ukraine has war since 2022. We have war since 2014. And right now in Ukraine, we have 1.5 million veterans right now. Ministry of Economy estimates up to 6 million veterans at the end of the war. You have seen numbers that Kleb gave to you. Just imagine 6 million veterans in the population that 30 million. It's quite a big number. So what are all these people going to be doing after having military experience? How are we going to integrate them? And when we are talking about veterans, we have to keep in mind, it's not only about veterans, it's about their families as well. But people affected by the military experience and people affected by war trauma. So what Superhumans does right now, we are trying to understand what these people are going to be doing after having military experience. We are doing basic things. We are asking them, what do you want to do after being discharged from the army? And they literally tell us, we know nothing. We know nothing but the war. So we are trying to help them to rewrite their military experience into civilian experience. Then we are trying to match them with potential employees, and then we are trying to retrain them to fit these positions. And also we are trying to help them to understand basic financial, financial law, how you can spend your money, because they had small salaries and they had huge salaries in the army. Then small salaries again, and we do that like with Privatbank, our partner, when we are sharing this information with our patients. So it's a huge work that needs to be done. So there are a lot of difficult things that Ukrainian employees facing as being as employee. Where do we find people? And then when we found people, how we reskill them, how we reintegrate them, and how we put all this trauma Ukrainian have together, because someone have war trauma, someone have lost something, moral trauma, someone have another kind of trauma, being just sitting on this rock and being a target, as Vyacheslav mentioned. So it's a huge, complicated issue ahead of us, and Superhuman Center wasn't supposed to do that, but we have to, because we care about our patients, and we are trying to understand, after giving them medical services, what's going to be next in their life. And we have a video I was supposed to present. So not to make everything very negative, because it sounds like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. The world is waiting for the end of the world for the last, I don't know, centuries. I want to share the video, and it's video of our superhumans. We don't call our patients patients, we call them superhumans, because these are people who are having less, doing more. And this video is about how strong we are as Ukrainians as a nation, and how strong our superhumans and how many chances they have to return to their active life.
Вони втратили частину свого тіла, але не втратили себе. І почали все спочатку, без однієї, двох, трьох і навіть 4 кінцівок. Не просто робили перші кроки. Вони досягли значно більшого. Бігають, стрибають, підкорюють вершини, плавають, долають, падають і щоразу підіймаються, ризикують і перемагають. Вони обіймають, танцюють, люблять, подорожують, освічуються, одружуються, народжують дітей. Вони щасливі, красиві та сміливі, бо вони суперлюди. І вони серед нас.
It's about Ukrainians. It's about my country, and the most important thing you've seen, how many of these people are young. The whole life is in front of them. So it's very important to find the role for them in the workforce and to find a reason for them to live.
Thank you so much for sharing that film with us. I really feel moved by watching the way people have turned their lives around and taken on challenges that, as you told me before we started today, some things they wouldn't have ever dreamt of doing when they were sort of fully capable of doing those things. Now that they have some disability, they're taking on bigger challenges, and it's so inspiring to see what you and the organization have done. I want to ask each of you, in a way, to think about or tell us about something that you feel could be done to break through some of the challenges that you've described today, sort of that would help to scale up, whether it's your efforts or the efforts of the entrepreneurs on this panel that are, they've talked about the things they've done locally with their own companies, but what one thing do you think could be done to really sort of scale up the solutions that may be out there to address this challenge? Clib, I think you had sort of started to go down that road. It might be a policy challenge, and I'll come back to Barbara on that, or it might be something that is just so easily replicable that needs to be done differently. So Clib, maybe you want to come on that question. And we only have about maybe 7 or 8 minutes for this. I want to turn to the audience, so please keep your responses very brief.
Yes, the first is certainly stable peace and security guarantees, because people will not return and will not build their lives in Ukraine if there are no these prerequisites, and we need to take into account. But going into more operational things, especially as we are in BRD office, we believe that investment in housing is really very important, both social housing and corporate housing. We have, as you mentioned, we have a very big structural unemployment, where not just people with different skills from what is needed are in place, and that's why they are unemployed. The biggest problem is displacement, and it means that they are not in the right place where jobs are. And we understand that companies, EBRD clients, they move further to safer areas, to the west, and there is a need of this investment. And Ukraine, in the last 30 years, had no stock of social housing, and which is very important. And on the local side, I think that it's very important, but also it could be supported by the private business and by investors, is investing into the child care. That will not only make an investment in long-term perspectives and economic perspectives for our country, but also in women economic participation right now, that will help not only the economy, but it will help women themselves.
Yes, those are two, I think, really, well, three. You mentioned the first and foremost safety and security, but housing and bringing women back into the workforce and investing in welfare of women and children. Vyacheslav, what about from your side? What would you say, looking ahead, would be a sort of a big thing that needs to happen in order to break through the challenges that you as an entrepreneur face?
I
think it will come on. It will come on if you just keep it.
Yeah. So I think that basic thing for each Ukrainian business.
Sorry, yeah, that mic doesn't seem to be working anymore. Yeah.
I got it. Yeah. Thank you. I think that the first thing for any Ukrainian business is to take this reality and change philosophy of business, change the basic paradigm, and we should take every Ukrainian business should take that shortage of personnel is a long trend. We need to, the reintegration of veterans is a long trend. So we need to redesign our businesses for this new reality. Redesign. Not wait to another situation. Yeah. So what does it mean? Redesigning of their business. For example, your working place should be adopted for women, for veterans, for people with disabilities, and so on. Your service environment should be adopted for new kind of customers. For example, our company is in process of redesign our post offices to barrier-free environment, yeah, without any barriers, starting from digitalization and without any barriers, physical barriers. So one answers for me is a changing of paradigm of your business to this new reality.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift,
absolutely,
as you're describing. Wonderful. So Barbara, I hinted before that there's a policy agenda, I'm sure, that is there. We haven't really talked so much about what the government needs to do, but I'm sure that you have thought about what a human capital sort of strategy might look like, or maybe there are issues that are getting in the way of some of the types of projects that EBRD has tried to structure with entrepreneurs. Is there some particular sort of policy element that you think still needs to be addressed, even in the context of the war and thinking about post-war reconstruction, that you would highlight?
Thank you very much, Alan. And maybe before I get into that, just very briefly, I would really like to say that what we've seen in the video and also what I've seen last week, the resilience and ingenuity and intelligence and drive of Ukraine and Ukrainians is absolutely humbling. And it's an absolute privilege to keep working with you. So, you know, just to say that from our side, we stay the course and we are there to keep working with you. In terms of the long-term the policy reforms and in the way the policy changes that also are needed, there are two things that we do. One is to focus actually at labor markets. So what we've seen and what you mentioned earlier on, Alan, as well, is there is this sort of dichotomy in a way. You have high unemployment and you have large numbers of vacancies, so that the employment services can play a crucial role in creating those linkages between employers and those that are looking for jobs and those that maybe need to be upskilled, reskilled in order to be able to look for those jobs and to get those jobs. And that is exactly what we're doing. We're working in partnership with the Ministry for the Economy and many other partners to create that link and make it better and fit for purpose. So that's one thing. The other thing then is, of course, also to look specifically at veterans. And we are going to launch a new veterans and a human capital resilience charter, actually, that is that goes across all different sectors and looks at veterans, looks at people with disability, women, and many others, and tries to equip employers from across all different sectors with the tools, but also the principles that are required in order to integrate people like that into the workforce. So these are two areas that we focus on at the moment, but of course we will stay nimble and also adjust depending on how the situation continues to evolve.
Wonderful. Mauro, you described a very difficult challenge you're facing in recruiting people into a very specialized business. What would you like to see done differently to be able to make that more possible? You've heard from Glib already about some of the things that he feels maybe need to be fixed. How does it look from your perspective?
So veterans, I will leave it because somehow the colleagues already spoke about that. I will try to focus on the students and the children that left Ukraine. Because all these children, and it is the majority, because at the end of the day, during the war, it was women and children that left mainly Ukraine. They're all going actually to school already for 3 years. So they created their social environment, friends, and much probably they will complete this education abroad. Now, how we will bring them back when they are already integrated in some other country? So we need to compete with the other country. We need to create actually a working environment in Ukraine that is somehow similar to the one that they will find as soon as they finish the school abroad. And there are many things that can be done. One just to mention here is just to update our labor code. So our labor code is still from 1972 in Ukraine. So somehow this doesn't create the dream labor environments that students that probably studying in London or in Germany will actually try to get. And those people that are abroad, they will come even with different skills because they are going to school in another environment. They have intercultural exchanges. They will learn much more things, and they could really accelerate what is the development of Ukraine after war. So starting from the basics will help a lot. But we need to understand that we will compete for these resources.
I'm glad you brought up the labor code. I'd also heard that that was a sort of an obstacle and something that needs to be looked at very, very soon. Olga, I was really struck when you sort of spoke earlier. You described Superhumans as a medical center, medical service, and then you really went into the wraparound sort of facility and services that you provide to reintegrate people into the labor force. What do you think could be done to scale that up, so that it would start to make an even bigger dent in the challenge that Ukraine faces?
Most of the solutions we're looking for should be scalable for Ukraine, because we are talking about big numbers of mobilized veterans, people who left the country. So every solution we're looking at should be scalable. I would say that we need to find a way how we can improve our healthcare system, because it's at the edge of its capacity. We are actually, with the Ukrainian health system, we are at the edge of actually doing anything, because we have lots of patients stuck in the system for 2 years, and a lot of medical workers has left the country. So we need to find a way to scale up Superhumans or other good projects around the country to provide quality medical aid to return people back to the military or to the workforces. What we do, we return people back to the workforces. And it's very, very important, because that's all people we have who are in Ukraine, so we need to bring them back. Number two, that Vyacheslav already mentioned, we need to prepare businesses to embrace veterans and people with disabilities back at workforces. It's barrier-free working places or barrier-free areas where people can actually access physically. So whatever we rebuild, we have to rebuild in a new way. So it's very, very important. Then we have to prepare teams, because teams have to embrace veterans or people with war trauma into their environment. And that's what Barbara mentioned, working and doing the trainings and increasing our level of empathy, of accepting different traumas in one places. And that's another very important thing. But every solution we are looking at should be scalable, because we are talking about big numbers. It's not like, 100,000 people, it's millions of people. So, and they have to be, really, in terms of resources, they have to be reasonable, because we're talking about quite a big country.
I let things go a little bit longer than I originally had expected to, because the responses were so, I think, penetrating. I want to sort of turn to the audience now and take at least a couple of questions and give the panelists a chance to respond before we finish in about 4 minutes. And I'm going to take a few questions if I see more hands. I see one here, and let's start there. And if there are others with questions, I will get to you. Do I see a hand in the back there as well? Yeah, and we'll take that one as well.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So please try to keep it brief, because we only have a few minutes.
I will. I won't even introduce myself, but I wanted to get you to think about firefighters, fire and rescue services. I have data from SESU, the State Emergency Services, for 537 firefighters have been killed or injured, and currently 422 fire stations destroyed. And these are the bravest people. They go into places of great danger. And I just wanted to raise the possibility as maybe a temporary solution for essential workers like that, getting some volunteers to come in until you have skilled up the labour force. I work closely with the National Fire Chiefs Council in the UK, and there are thousands of firefighters here who would donate their time, at least for a period, while you're scaling up and rebuilding those essential services. I'm happy to talk to you further about that at any time.
Thank you for that. I saw a question in the back, please. It works. I think you just need to start talking.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Andrei Maximovich, IFC BRD alumnus. Question to Mauro and Vyacheslav, if possible. What can IFIs do besides just providing financing to help you withstand these difficult times and adjust to the hopefully soon post-war reality? Thank you.
Great. If there are no more questions, that leaves us a couple of minutes to respond. I don't know on the fire brigade question. It's an interesting one, but I don't know that anybody on the panel has a lot to say about it. But perhaps if anybody wants to come in, and Vyacheslav on what EBRD can do, and we give Mauro one word as well on that.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that such an event. It's crucial, important now, and it's a great support for us to be heard about our problems. It's not about money, of course. It's not about finance, but maybe global society, European society, should understand very clearly situation in Ukraine, in Ukrainian businesses, with Ukrainian veterans, and maybe that is the main support for us. Thank you again.
Mauro.
I guess we can separate the support in two parts. One part is about the business itself. That is, this support is like a customer supplier, no support. But when we are talking about people, I believe that we need to work all as a team. Because alone we can do something, but the extent will be not the same, and we will just reach very small part without the opportunity to extend to other companies. So I heard before from the colleagues, we are bigger companies and we can do something, so we have some extent. But there are smaller companies in which there is not this possibility. And I think that our responsibility as big enterprises and IFIs is to work together to cover also the needs of those companies that will not have the opportunity to do it alone.
I think it's a really nice point to end on, partnership. I think it probably very much expresses what these meetings are really all about, is bringing together entrepreneurs and civil society and donors and other multilateral development banks to help solve challenges. And no country I think that EBRD is involved with today faces bigger challenges than Ukraine. We heard a lot about that today that I think opens our eyes, but also some potential solutions and some really inspiring thoughts about how Ukrainians are rising to their own personal challenges. So I want to thank the panelists very much for a really stimulating conversation, and I want to thank all of you today for joining us. Thank you very much.